now dig into this with Matt Warren. He's the director of the RMIT University Centre for Cybersecurity Research and Innovation. He joins us from Melbourne. So, by my understanding, this has been an ongoing operation over nearly 3 years. A number of murders have been stopped, drug busts have taken place. So, in their minds, why do this big bust now? Why not keep using the app to continue doing law enforcement that way?
Well, I suppose the issue is with any operation, it has to come to an end, and the fact, with the sheer statistics in terms of the criminality that was stopped, it got to an extent that the scheme operation had to end. One of the other problems is that criminal gangs are also, looking at other technologies. So it could very well be that, some of those criminal gangs will actually move into other ways of communication. So law enforcement felt this was the right time in order to, make those arrests on a global level before those criminal gangs were moving into other forms of technology or other sort of apps that they're also using.
Well, Matt, given that this has played out this way, does this mean that this kind of strategy might not work again in future, given that criminal gangs are now aware of how they might be being monitored?
Well, certainly when you talk about criminal gangs, you talk about organizations that learn from the past and adapt their tactics. So the fact that they've been deceived in such a global manner means that those criminal gangs and groups will be now reviewing the way that they communicate. They will be very much less trusting around the security of their communication channels. What you'll see is them augmenting different forms of technology, so they're not just sort of reliant on, one technology. You could see them, using the dark net to share more information and communications, which makes it harder for law enforcement to monitor those activities. The reason why this operation's been so successful is that law enforcement around the world has been able to monitor those communications, for a 3-year period, and being able to generate the intelligence and evidence from those 25 million messages.
Sure. Matt, you work in cybersecurity. I'm wondering, are there other privacy concerns here? That there may be, for instance, many other apps out there that people are using that are actually monitored by governments?
Well, certainly we've seen a lot of authoritarian governments trying to break into messaging apps to try to find information about citizens from those countries. So certainly you could have a situation where, authoritarian governments could use this same sort of approach and technique to try to monitor their own population. Because again, it's all based on deception. What you're trying to do is deceive people to use this app because it's a trusted app. So people would, share information on those apps, but not knowing that those governments just are monitoring all of those communications.
Matt, I see that all of this particular operation came about, I believe, over a few beers with the Australian Federal Police. How common is cooperation like this across countries when it comes to law enforcement and technology?
Certainly, it's very common because police forces and law enforcement around the world are trying to, solve the same problems with limited resources. So to be able to come up with ideas and, pull together techniques and approaches, is a real outcome. And certainly in this case, it was the Australian Federal Police and the FBI that really worked together to put this mechanism in place, and they were able to share that information with law enforcement agencies from around the world. And that's why we're seeing such a global impact now, when all the arrests are being made. And certainly what we're going to see is in the short term, it is going to have an impact on criminal gangs around the world, but those gangs will learn from what's happened and they'll start to develop their own robust, resilient systems.
Matt Warren there, the director of the RMIT University Centre for Cybersecurity Research and Innovation. Great to get your expertise here on Al Jazeera. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Thank you.